Hello and welcome to episode 18 of Strive, where we talk about security, technology, resilience and everything IT, all in a virtual environment. I'm Darren Thomson, your host. Now today, we're going to talk about something quite provocative. Should ransomware payments be banned by government? Government, industry leaders and security practitioners have been debating this topic for a few years now. And in the UK, where I live, it's becoming a real prospect, certainly in the public sector. But is banning payments a smart deterrent or a potentially dangerous gamble? Ransomware, of course, has become one of the defining threats of our time. It locks up our data, it cripples our organisations, and often leaves leaders facing an impossible choice: pay a criminal or watch the business collapse. According to Commvault's latest research, 96% of UK business leaders actually support a ban on ransomware payments, in both the public and the private sectors. On principle, almost everyone agrees that we should not be funding criminal enterprises, if for no other reason than for moral reasons. But here's the rub. 3/4 of those very same leaders surveyed admit that they would still pay if it was the only way to save their organisation. This gap between principle and practice is where this debate really heats up. Let's start by talking about some of the arguments in favour of banning ransomware payments. Supporters say that a ban potentially removes the financial incentive from cyber criminals, and if criminals can't get paid, attacks become less profitable and eventually less attractive. 1/3 of leaders surveyed believe exactly that banning payments would reduce the overall prevalence of ransomware attacks in the UK. Another third think that a ban would force greater government involvement, more support, more resources, and ultimately a stronger national cyber resilience. There's of course a moral case to be had here as well. We absolutely shouldn't be paying criminal enterprises. And also we know that paying ransomware doesn't necessarily mean that we get our data back. So in theory, a well-enforced ban could both dry up the market and strengthen collaboration between government and business. Sounds compelling, doesn't it? But the story of course doesn't end here. The practical reality is much messier. Only 10% of leaders in our survey said that they would actually follow the rules in a real crisis. The other 90%, survival, they say, outweighs principle, even if it means risking civil or even criminal penalties. So why is this? Well, it's because recovery is still way too hard. Even with backups and incident response plans in place, businesses now take an average of about 24 days to recover from a cyber attack. That's almost a whole month offline. That's a death sentence for some businesses. For a global bank or a retailer, it may mean millions or even billions of revenue loss. For a mid-sized business, it could easily mean bankruptcy. So the uncomfortable truth is this: if the choice is between breaking the law or losing the company, most leaders will break the law. A ban without stronger recovery capabilities risks driving ransomware payments underground, rather than eliminating them. So where does this leave us? Well, in my view, banning ransomware payments may be part of a long-term strategy that works, but it's not a silver bullet. It must be accompanied by huge investments in resilience, prevention, detection, and crucially, recovery and recovery testing. Almost every leader surveyed in our recent survey, 98% said cyber readiness and recovery are now top spending priorities. And that's the real lesson here. The best way to beat ransomware is to make it irrelevant. If you can recover quickly and cleanly and with confidence, the criminals really do lose their leverage. As I've said before on this podcast, paying a ransom rarely guarantees recovery, but a well-tested recovery plan almost always does. So, are ransomware payment bans a good or a bad idea? Well, the answer is complicated, isn't it? Good in principle, risky in practice. Until organisations can recover faster and more reliably, bans alone may simply add stress to an already impossible situation. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Strive. That's all we have time for today. If you enjoyed this episode, maybe go and have a look at some of the previous episodes and tell your friends. Otherwise, please stay tuned for more stories and insights. And until next time, stay informed, stay secure, and I'll see you in the next one.